The town of Rockview had always prided itself on its predictability. The days flowed like a quiet river, uninterrupted and calm, where the extraordinary was but a whisper lost in the wind. Crestview Bank, a stately institution built of marble and glass, stood as a testament to this stability, its grandeur a reflection of the town's enduring legacy. The patrons within its walls moved with purpose, exchanging pleasantries with the tellers, checking balances, and signing documents that spoke of mortgages, investments, and careful planning. Then the doors creaked open, and an unsettling presence disrupted the seamless routine. A man stepped inside, his figure wrapped in the tattered remnants of a once sturdy coat, its edges frayed from years of wear. His boots scuffed against the polished floor, leaving behind faint marks, the only sign of his passing. His shoulders were stooped with age, yet his posture held an undeniable strength. His face, weathered and lined like a map of forgotten years, was partially obscured by the brim of a battered cap. But his eyes, those eyes, gleamed with something ancient, something determined. Silence clung to the air as he advanced, his presence a disruption to the orderly world of financial transactions. When he finally spoke, his voice carried through the room with the weight of authority, cutting through the murmurs of small talk like a blade through silk. "This bank is mine." For a moment the words hung in the air, suspended in disbelief. Then a burst of laughter rippled through the room, hesitant at first, then swelling into a wave. The tellers exchanged amused glances, while a few customers chuckled openly. Even the security guard, Marcus, a hulking figure of muscle and vigilance, allowed a smirk to cross his face. He straightened from where he leaned against the wall, shaking his head as he moved toward the old man. "All right, old-timer," Marcus said, his tone laced with good-natured condescension. "Let's get you back outside, yeah?" The man did not move. He merely adjusted the sack slung over his shoulder, its weight shifting slightly. The sound that followed, the unmistakable rustle of something heavy, something substantial, caused Marcus to hesitate. The laughter died as quickly as it had begun. A thick, uneasy silence settled over the bank, curiosity mingling with the first wisps of apprehension. The old man's voice came again, this time quieter, yet no less commanding. "I said, this bank is mine." The afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor, illuminating the deep lines on his face. To the casual observer, he was nothing more than a frail relic of the past. But those who met his gaze saw something else, something that defied time itself. It was not the face of a confused old man. It was the face of someone who had come to reclaim what was rightfully his. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped the room, thick and weighty, as if the old man's words had stolen the very air from the space. Then a chuckle broke through the tension, hesitant at first, but quickly cascading into a wave of laughter. The tellers behind the counters exchanged bemused glances, their lips curled in smirks, while the customers waiting in line shook their heads in disbelief. To them, this was no more than the ramblings of an eccentric old man lost in the fog of time. "Right," scoffed a man in a crisp gray suit near the front of the line. "And I suppose I own the town hall." His remark drew fresh chuckles, emboldening the crowd. The branch manager, Oliver Grant, stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. He was a man who prided himself on maintaining order, and this disruption was a nuisance he had neither the time nor the patience for. Folding his arms across his chest, he regarded the old man with thinly veiled condescension. "Sir, with all due respect, I think you're confused. Perhaps you should sit down while we call someone to assist you." His tone was measured, polite even, but there was no mistaking the underlying patronization. The old man did not move. His grip on the sack tightened as he stared directly into Oliver's eyes, his gaze unwavering. "I am not confused," he said, his voice now a low rumble, vibrating with the weight of certainty. "This bank belongs to me." The laughter faltered, but Oliver remained firm, his patience thinning. He exhaled sharply. "Sir, do you even have an account here?" He gestured toward the row of tellers. "If not, I'm afraid you have no business claiming ownership of this establishment." A few snickers rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "Maybe he thinks he's a Rockefeller." More laughter followed. The old man tilted his head slightly, something flickering in his gaze. Something ancient, something unbreakable. A count? He echoed, almost as if the very question amused him. He let out a breath, slow and deliberate. Son, I built this bank. The room fell silent once more, but this time the quiet was different. It was not the absence of sound, but the weight of uncertainty pressing down upon them. The tellers, the customers, even Oliver himself felt the first stirrings of doubt creeping in, like a shadow stretching with the setting sun. A few shifted uncomfortably, the laughter now replaced by a strange, electric tension. Oliver studied the old man more closely, noticing the details he had previously overlooked, the weathered lines on his face, the sharpness in his eyes that did not match the frailty of his body. For the first time he hesitated, and then the old man did something that drove the final nail into the coffin of their mockery. He shifted the sack on his shoulder and let it drop to the floor with a resounding thud. The sound reverberated through the room, silencing the last traces of amusement. Every eye was now locked onto the sack, the laughter replaced by curiosity, by something dangerously close to fear. The old man stood tall, the ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his lips. I am not confused, he repeated, his voice carrying an air of finality. And I have the proof. A nervous laugh escaped from the crowd, but Marcus, the security guard, stepped closer, his hand hovering near his belt. All right, sir, let's see what's in that sack. The old man's smile was slow, deliberate, as he bent down and opened the burlap sack. What spilled forth was not the expected collection of trinkets or coins, but bundles of faded banknotes, thick and wrapped in paper bands stamped with the Crestview Bank logo from a bygone era. The notes, yellowed with time, bore serial numbers that had long since fallen out of circulation, each bill a relic from an age most in the room had never known. Gasps filled the air, the atmosphere shifting from ridicule to disbelief. A murmur rippled through the onlookers, and whispers of speculation flitted from mouth to mouth. Some recognized the old designs, the flourishes of ink and artistry no longer seen in modern currency. Others merely stared, bewildered at the sheer volume of the money, stacked high, untouched by the passing decades. Oliver's face paled as he stepped forward, his voice trembling. What is this? He crouched, hesitating before lifting a single bundle. The paper felt dry and brittle beneath his fingers, a stark contrast to the cold, polished floor beneath him. He turned the bundle over, his eyes widening as he saw the stamped insignia of Crestview Bank from over half a century ago. The old man nodded as if he had anticipated this very question. Proof, he said simply, proof that I built this bank, that I owned it long before your father was born. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it, a defiance forged in the fires of injustice and years of waiting. The silence stretched, thick with the weight of realization. The customers, tellers, and clerks alike stood frozen, caught between disbelief and the undeniable truth before them. Marcus, the security guard, took a step back, his imposing stature suddenly diminished in the face of something far greater than mere authority. Oliver licked his lips, his throat dry. Where did you get this? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Jasper Hargrove, the old man, lifted his gaze, the fire in his eyes undimmed. I never took a cent that didn't belong to me, he said, and this, every last bill, belongs to me. It was mine when I built this bank, and it is mine now. A woman gasped, and a man near the door muttered in disbelief. Jasper Hargrove, the founder of the bank, thought to be long dead, stood before them, a living testament to a forgotten past. The murmurs grew louder, confusion and curiosity swirling in the air. Oliver's mind raced, grappling with the implications. That's impossible, he stammered. Even if you had money from long ago, it doesn't mean you kept a ledger. The old man interrupted, his voice rising with conviction. My name is in there. Oliver crouched, lifting the dusty ledger with trembling hands, flipping through the brittle pages until his eyes widened in shock. Jasper Hargrove, he whispered, the name hanging in the air like a ghost. The old man nodded, his presence suddenly commanding. That is me. A woman gasped, and a man near the door muttered in disbelief. Jasper Hargrove, the founder of the bank, thought to be long dead, stood before them, a living testament to a forgotten past. Oliver's throat went dry as his fingers brushed against the ancient ink on the pages of the ledger. Each entry was a time capsule, documenting transactions from an era long gone. His mind reeled as he traced the careful penmanship, seeing Jasper Hargrove's name signed over and over again, a ghostly whisper of legitimacy that refused to be buried by time. Marcus, the security guard, loomed closer, his eyes narrowing with skepticism. Anyone could forge an old ledger, he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. Jasper chuckled, the sound brittle yet unyielding. Oh, I expected doubt, he said. But doubt won't change the truth. Look deeper, boy. Find the deeds. Find the signatures. Oliver hesitated before flipping to the back of the ledger. His breath hitched as he found a document folded within the pages. A yellowed deed of ownership stamped with the seal of Rockview County and signed in the same familiar script. Jasper Hargrove. A cold sweat broke out on Oliver's forehead. He shot a glance at Marcus, who was now visibly tense. The bank employees, once dismissive, edged closer, the weight of the revelation shifting the very air around them. This is real, Oliver whispered, barely able to believe his own words. This is actually real. Jasper Hargrove took a slow step forward, his presence suddenly larger than life. Now do you see? He asked, his voice like a distant storm. They erased me. They buried my name. But time has a way of unearthing the truth, and I will not be forgotten. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The once jubilant crowd stood frozen, staring at the old man with newfound awe, uncertainty thick in their eyes. Oliver shook his head, disbelief etched on his features. That cannot be you. Jasper Hargrove would be over 100 years old by now. The old man's eyes sparkled with a fierce light. And yet here I am. A heavy silence enveloped the bank, the weight of history pressing down like a storm cloud. Oliver's hands trembled as he continued to flip through the ledger, each page revealing a truth that threatened to unravel the very foundation of the bank. This ledger is over 60 years old, he murmured, his voice barely audible. This ledger is by the old man Jasper Hargrove, or so he claims. Jasper took a slow step forward, his frail frame betraying none of the fire that burned in his eyes. I was a young man when I built this institution, he said, his voice rich with memory. I laid the first brick with my own hands, secured the first deposit with my own word. This was more than a bank to me. It was my life's work, my legacy. The employees and customers watched in stunned silence. Marcus, the security guard, no longer reached for his belt. Instead, his brow furrowed as he studied Jasper, recognizing something in the man's demeanor, something undeniable. Oliver swallowed hard. If what you're saying is true, then why are you only coming back now? Jasper exhaled, a deep and weary breath. Because the world forgets, he said. Because time erases even the names carved in stone. And because for years, I was left with nothing but a name that no one remembered. I fought, I shouted, I tried to be heard, but no one listens to ghosts. He took another step forward, his fingers brushing against the ledger. But the past has a way of coming back, Mr. Grant. It lingers in pages like these, in ink that refuses to fade. And now I will not be ignored. Oliver's grip tightened on the book, the reality of the situation crashing down upon him. The weight of Jasper's words, the undeniable evidence before him, and the silent acknowledgement in the faces of those around him, everything pointed to one truth. Jasper Hargrove had returned, and he was here to claim what was his. My business partner, Harold Finch, Jasper replied, his voice low and filled with bitterness. He betrayed me, convinced the board I was unfit to run things. Just like that, I was erased. A murmur rippled through the crowd, disbelief mingling with sympathy. But that was decades ago, a woman whispered from the back. Jasper nodded, his expression hardening. I fought to get it back for years. I fought, but doors kept closing, and people kept looking the other way. Then one day I vanished, because that's what they wanted, wasn't it? For me to disappear? Oliver's heart raced. And now you're back. Jasper's gaze was unwavering. Yes, I'm back, and I'm here to take back what's mine. A chill swept through the room, the tension palpable. The crowd stood frozen, a mix of fear and awe in their eyes. The bank employees, once mocking, now seemed small in the presence of history unfolding before them. Marcus, the security guard, slowly stepped back, his imposing stance faltering. Even he sensed that this was no ordinary dispute. This was justice clawing its way out of the grave. "You expect us to just hand you the bank?" Oliver asked, though his voice lacked the strength it once held. Jasper lifted his chin. "I expect you to do what is right." A long pause stretched between them before Oliver exhaled sharply. "We need legal counsel. We need proof beyond a doubt." Jasper nodded. "Then get your lawyers, your historians, your accountants. Let them dig through the past, and when they do, they will find that I am telling the truth." He turned to the others. "This is not just my fight. This is a reckoning. This bank was built on betrayal, but today it stands on the edge of redemption." As the last rays of daylight slipped away, Rockview stood witness to the rise of an old legend. The battle for Crestview Bank had begun,